Have you ever felt, defined by your past, maybe something you couldn't really control, like a struggle you had as a kid, or just these huge expectations your family put on you?
Yeah, that weight can feel incredibly heavy, can it? It sort of shapes every decision, makes you feel kind of trapped by a legacy you never asked for.
Exactly. And those early experiences, maybe even trauma, they can create these deep-seated fears,
Yeah.
things that really dictate how we connect with people.
It can even block us from building the future we actually want deep down.
Absolutely. And that is precisely the kind of journey we see in the book we're unpacking today. We're diving into the glittering, high-stakes world of London high society.
A book that really explores how the past shapes the present for these two central characters.
Right. Our mission here is to uncover the key insights, those character journeys, and maybe the surprising dynamics hidden in the pages, all tailored for you, the listener.
Yeah, this book gives us a lot to think about. It shows how those internal battles can be, well, much tougher than anything happening on the surface.
Definitely. Now, if these themes we talk about today, if they resonate with you, you might also find our Mindful Moments YouTube channel interesting.
Oh, right.
It uses AI-powered analysis of books, specifically designed to spark reflection, critical thinking on these kinds of human experiences.
That sounds like a great resource. Exploring different angles like that can really broaden your perspective, connect these fictional journeys to maybe bigger truths about ourselves.
Worth checking out if you want to dive deeper into other works, too. So, okay, let's set the scene. London. The season's in full swing.
And reputation isn't just, important. It's everything. Family legacy. It carries this massive weight.
And nowhere is that weight more crushing, really, than on young Simon Bassett, the long-awaited heir to the Dukedom of Hastings.
Right. His father, the Duke, was initially bursting with pride for his newborn son.
Yeah.
Immense pride.
But that pride just shattered. It turned into this brutal, devastating disappointment. The book makes it so clear that Duke's expectations were incredibly specific, totally unyielding.
And they crumbled when he discovered Simon had a childhood stammer.
Yeah. His father didn't see a child who was struggling. He saw, a flaw. A fatal flaw, a weakness that threatened the perfect family line he cared so much about.
The rejection was just instant.
Yeah.
And cruel. There's that detail about the silverback brush, his father grabbing it, coming towards Simon, calling him a stupid little, before Simon could even get a word out.
It's chilling.
And then the order to the nurse, just dismissing his own son, saying she could keep her job just so long as you keep him away from me. I mean, that's not just harsh parenting, that's trauma.
Absolutely. It embedded this profound fear of inadequacy in Simon. And a vow, really, born out of all that pain.
Wow.
He would never, ever be like his father.
And the most extreme form of that vow.
He swore he'd never have children, specifically to end the Hastings line, to make absolutely sure he couldn't pass on what he saw as his own weakness, or even worse, replicate his father's cruelty.
Just devastating.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we meet Daphne Bridgerton. She comes from this large, lively, famously chaotic family.
Right. She's witty, she's sensible, but she's also frustrated. Despite being charming, all the eligible guys seem to see her as just a friend.
Which, of course, puts her under pressure from her mother, Violet Bridgerton. The book notes Violet is undeterred in her mission to marry off her children.
Yes. And Daphne feels that pressure, being the eldest daughter needing to secure a good match.
So how do these two, Simon with his deep trauma and Daphne with her societal pressures, how do they actually collide?
Well, it starts pretty unexpectedly. Daphne's trying to fend off this unwanted suitor, Nigel Burbrook. Simon shows up, ready to play the hero.
But Daphne gets there first, delivers what the book calls a surprisingly effective punch squarely on Nigel's jaw.
I love that part. Simon, this powerful duke, is all set to step in, and Daphne just handles it herself.
And it's in that chaotic moment he realizes, bugger it all, this was Anthony's sister. Anthony Bridgerton, her very protective older brother.
Yeah, that connection dawns on him. And this encounter, plus their shared frustration with the whole marriage market thing, Simon being chased by mothers, Daphne being overlooked, it sparks an idea.
A fake courtship.
It seems like a neat solution, right? Benefits both of them. Simon, the season's biggest catch, suddenly looks unavailable to all those matchmaking mamas.
Exactly. He seems taken. And Daphne, suddenly being seen with a duke makes her instantly more appealing to other potential suitors. Her stock goes way up.
And Lady Whistledown, the society gossip columnist, picks up on it immediately, notes the Duke's presence and his association with a certain member of the Bridgerton family.
So the plan, fake as it is It works brilliantly on the surface.
But this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because despite the whole thing being pretend, the book shows us this genuine connection starting to grow between them.
Yeah, their personalities just click. Their wit matches, the banter flows so easily. Daphne's background, having grown up with 4 brothers, gives her this sort of education in men that Simon finds, well, surprisingly refreshing, amusing even.
You see it in their conversations, like when they're discussing how men are mad, or Simon teasing her because she reacts so genuinely. He calls her an easy mark.
Right. And there are these moments
Yeah.
where she makes him actually laugh, or he finds himself genuinely appreciating her good sense. The lines between the act and reality start blurring.
And it surprises both of them, I think, how comfortable they actually feel together.
Mm-hmm. The comfort grows, but so does the tension. It becomes almost tangible. There's that key moment in the garden.
Oh, yeah. The atmosphere is just charged. And Simon, despite promising Anthony he wouldn't mess around with Daphne, despite his own vow about never marrying or having kids,
Yeah.
he just can't resist. They kiss.
And the fallout. Immediate. Explosive. Anthony Bridgerton finds them.
His protective fury just erupts. It leads to a physical fight, him punching Simon, and then a challenge, a near duel.
Anthony even said something like, "That is for defiling my sister."
Mm-hmm.
It just hammers home how fiercely protective those Bridgerton brothers are of Daphne.
It really does. And it's in this incredibly high-stakes moment facing a potential duel that Simon is forced to tell Daphne why he can't marry her. He says flat out, "I can't have children."
And this is where that crucial distinction comes in, the one you mentioned earlier. His inability isn't biological. It's not a physical thing.
No, it's entirely driven by that deep, deep trauma. His fear of becoming his father, of passing on that legacy of cruelty, or what he perceives as his own flawed nature because of the stammer.
He's convinced himself he must end the family line to protect any potential child from either inheriting the stammer or, maybe worse, inheriting his father's cruelty through him.
Daphne's initial reaction is, understandably, shock. But ultimately, she agrees to marry him anyway.
The book gives us her reasons, right? She loves him. She desperately wants to stop the duel and save his life.
And maybe there's a tiny part of her hoping he's wrong, that maybe they could have children somehow.
But their wedding night just immediately exposes this huge gap between them. Miscommunication, unaddressed trauma, it's all there. Daphne's mother gives her this incredibly vague, awkward talk about marital duties.
Oh, it's so awkward. And the phrasing leads Daphne to believe Simon is actually impotent, unable to perform.
Right. And Simon, meanwhile, is grappling with his vow, his internal conflict, and he's just completely thrown by her seeming ignorance and this massive misunderstanding.
He technically, fulfills his duties, ensures her pleasure even, but he deliberately prevents conception, which, of course, just reinforces her confusion and her hurt.
The real truth, the actual root of Simon's pain and his vow, doesn't come out until Daphne is at Cliveden, his family estate.
Yeah, it's the housekeeper, Mrs. Coulson, who reveals everything. She saw Simon's childhood firsthand.
Mrs. Coulson tells Daphne about the stammer, about his father's horrible rejection, the cruelty, and crucially, how hard Simon worked to overcome that stammer.
Only for it never to be good enough for his father. Mrs. Coulson confirms that chilling detail about his father cutting him off, telling her to keep Simon away from him.
And this is when Daphne understands the awful truth. Simon can biologically have children. He just won't.
Because his father's words, his actions, they carved this vow into his very soul. This fear that he is destined to become his father if he ever has a child himself. He thinks he's protecting a future child from him.
That realization, combined with the fact Simon deliberately misled her about the reason, it just ignites their biggest conflict. Daphne is absolutely furious, betrayed, hurt.
She confronts him, right? Saying things like, "You lied to me and you took advantage of my stupidity." It really shows how deep the betrayal feels.
And Simon, he's just trapped by his trauma. He can barely articulate it. He says something like, "My soul won't allow it," but he can't fully explain the wound that's driving him.
That failure to connect, to communicate through the pain, it leads to their separation. Daphne locks her bedroom door, then she goes back to Linden.
And Simon just retreats. He flees to another estate, spends 2 months in what the book calls utter emptiness. Even Lady Whistledown picks up on it, writing that the marriage has gone sour.
The path back starts with Anthony Bridgerton, actually. He acts on Daphne's behalf, visits Simon, delivers a letter from her.
Which prompts Daphne to return to Hastings' house, their London home. She's ready to try to somehow reach him.
Their really pivotal conversation happens in a park once Simon is back in London. This is the moment. Daphne confronts the absolute core of his pain, the stammer, his father's cruelty, and the fear of fatherhood that came from it all.
And Daphne's understanding here is just remarkable. She doesn't just offer sympathy. She gives him this incredibly powerful counter-argument. She reframes his entire experience.
She tells him, essentially, that if they did have a child who stuttered, that child wouldn't suffer like he did. Why? Because he, Simon, who overcame it himself, would be their father.
Right. He would love them unconditionally. He would understand. He would help them.
She basically takes the very source of his trauma, the stammer, his fight to overcome it, and flips it. It's not a weakness to be eliminated from the family line. It's a source of immense strength, empathy. It makes him uniquely qualified to be the opposite of his cruel father.
It's such a powerful shift. It directly challenges that fundamental vow that has defined his entire adult life.
And you see it land. Simon asks her, would you reject a child who stuttered? And his own immediate gut reaction is no. That shows how her compassion has broken through, cracked the foundation of that fear-based vow.
The book uses a small moment to symbolize this shift, this potential release from the past, the handling of his dead father's letters. An old friend had kept them.
Right, Daphne had made sure they weren't burned earlier. But now Simon is just indifferent. He doesn't need to read them. He doesn't need to burn them either. When Daphne asks what he wants to do with them, he just says nothing and grins.
It feels like a letting go, doesn't it? Maybe not total healing yet, but a significant step away from the past's absolute grip, likely sparked by Daphne's understanding and acceptance.
And the ultimate resolution regarding children, something Simon thought was completely impossible for him, is confirmed later. The book mentions their son, David.
It's presented as this really positive outcome. A family built not by ignoring trauma, but by confronting it, finding love and acceptance with someone who saw beyond the surface, beyond the fear, to the actual man underneath.
And all along, you have Lady Whistledown's commentary, witty, sharp, tracking society's view of it all, adding another layer. Plus, the ongoing mystery of who she is adds that extra bit of intrigue.
Definitely.
So when we look back at this whole story, this book, what are the really big takeaways for you?
Well, first, just the devastating long-term power of parental expectations and, frankly, parental cruelty. Simon's father's actions didn't just mess up his childhood, they dictated his entire life, his most intimate choices.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder, but it also shows, quite beautifully, I think, that real love and deep understanding can grow in the most unlikely places, even from something artificial like a fake courtship plan.
That's true. The genuine connection grew because they started to see and appreciate who the other person really was beneath the roles they were playing.
It also really underscores how vital communication is, and, maybe more importantly, how incredibly difficult it can be, especially when you're dealing with deep-seated pain, fear, and just societal ignorance, like we saw in their early marriage struggles.
That miscommunication was painful to read.
But ultimately, there's a strong message of hope, isn't there? Healing is possible. Growth is possible, often through connection with someone else.
Absolutely. Daphne's unwavering love, her unique way of seeing his trauma not as a flaw but as a potential strength, her refusal to let him be defined only by that pain that was crucial for his change.
It really pushes you, the reader, to look beyond those first impressions, doesn't it? To try and understand the hidden histories and wounds people might be carrying.
Yeah, it definitely does.
It makes you think, how might your own deepest fears, maybe the ones rooted in your past and family legacies, how might they be shaping your big decisions right now?
That's a powerful question. And maybe the hopeful part is that confronting those fears, not hiding them, but facing them with courage, with vulnerability.
Maybe with the support of someone who truly sees you and accepts you.
Right. That confrontation can open up futures you might have thought were completely impossible. Futures you might have believed were just, out of reach.
So think about the stories you encounter, whether it's in books like this one or conversations or even just reflecting on your own life. What are the deeper lessons there? How do these journeys resonate?
We really hope this exploration encourages you to keep thinking critically about the narratives you come across and the human truths they might reveal.
And we want to invite you again to check out Mindful Moments and our other podcasts for more insights inspired by books like this one.
Yeah, definitely explore those resources.
Please be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you found this conversation valuable, maybe share it with someone else who loves this book or is interested in these themes.
And if you haven't read the book yet, consider grabbing a copy through the link we've provided. It supports the author.
Absolutely. And most importantly, just keep engaging with stories, keep asking questions, and keep thinking critically.